Jedis, and today welcome to another session of our Salon Jedi Mindful podcast, and we have a very special guest today that's streaming in here with us live today into our community. So hopefully we'll see a few of you live jumping on. I know it's a work day and a school day, but hopefully we'll get a few jumping on live. So I want to welcome our very, very special guest today, Jack Howard. Jack, let me just give a little quick introduction about yourself before we start chatting. So, world-renowned educator, multi-award winner. I can see the two British Hairdressing Business Awards in the background there, and you've won many Colour Genius Awards, Marie Claire Colourist Award. I mean, the list of accolades go on and on. But you're also really known for bringing, the king of balayage and bringing balayage to the UK. And also, a mass influencer. You've just hit 200,000 followers on Instagram yesterday as we record this. Welcome to the podcast, Jack. It's so great to have you on here. Welcome. Can't wait to get chatting.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And of course, I'm in Washington, D.C., so it's sort of breakfast time for me and it's lunchtime for you. But that's the great thing about, the digital age that we live in, isn't it, really? It allows us to access so many different people.
It is. It's brilliant. And what I really want to dig into today, Jack, is your story of how you got to where you are now. I'm so fascinated by that. And I know our Jedis are as well. And I know that this podcast is really going to help them on their journeys too. Could I start by bringing you back, so we can dig into a bit more of Jack? Can I bring you back to how did you get into hairdressing? What's your journey around hairdressing up until before you came back to the UK and brought balayage to the UK? Would you mind giving us a bit of a history lesson? I know that you can't go into so much detail, but a little bit of how did you get started, and how did you get to that stage where you were coming back to the UK? A little career history for us.
Wow. Well, if you've got a couple of hours, I can tell you the first part of it. I'll try and break it down for you. I started hairdressing when I was 13. I lived in a village in the middle of nowhere, and I loved fashion and I loved pop music, and I wanted to look like the guys from Duran Duran, or at one point it was Adam Ant and all of that. And this village, of course, was quite rural, and everyone wanted to wear a motorcycle jacket and walk with the cows and stuff. Nothing wrong with that, but I didn't fit in. Okay. And I wanted my school, where I went to school, wasn't in the village, so it was outside. So I had Billy no mates. I had no friends really, quite isolated. And also, my parents were going through this messy divorce, and it was all sort of crazy. And I got a job in a hairdressing salon in Newark, and Newark's a very small little market town. And I remember going in, and everyone seemed so glamorous to me. All the girls looked like they belonged in Bananarama and stuff like that. They had all the curly perms and the highlights and the bows in the hair and high heels and sort of blusher, a pink blusher, very sort of 80s. And the guys all had these amazing haircuts, and they were all different and so cool. And I just felt like, oh my God, this is amazing for me. And I loved it. And of course, all I was doing was making coffee and sweeping up. And I sort of sneak little conversation of listening to the conversation. I'd be like, oh my God, they're doing that. That sounds so amazing. And me in my little rural, sad little life really at the time. And I just felt like I belonged in that. There was a community of people where it was okay just to be me. And that was very difficult for me at that time in my life, to be me. And as my parents sort of went through this very acrimonious divorce, I left home. I mean, it wasn't a great place. And I was 16. I was quite clever. I was on track to do my A-levels. I was doing my O-levels. But I left home, and that was freedom to me. That felt much safer. And what can I do? I mean, I hadn't, it was work in a shop, or it was working in an office at that time. Now, I couldn't type, and I still can't type. I still struggle on my keyboard. And I got a full-time job as an apprentice. and that's where I started my craft.
Okay.
And it was hairdressing has always been that one solid piece of security in my life, that I knew that I would turn up, I could work, I would get paid, I would be okay if I turned up.
Yeah.
And it served me so well throughout my whole career, through all the ups and downs that we go through. It's always been that one solid, one great thing that I could talk about, one great community of people that you could reach out to who would look after you. I was always looked after when I was younger, maybe because they saw that the sort of that young person that needed support. And then all my bosses were like, you know, you need to go to London. You need to go to London. And when, of course, I, you know, stepped off that National Express bus with a bin liner with a few things in, and went to sleep on a friend's sofa, and then started job hunting in London. And that was kind of the beginning of the journey. But I just sort of worked around. There was never, I think that I was so messy in my own head at that point that the saving grace was the job, because I knew that the career paid the bills. Mm-hmm. But I was just very, very commercial, had a nice column, made, you know, okay money, enough to be able to go out and buy the clothes that I wanted and go to the clubs that I wanted and all of that. And then it wasn't until I sort of was like a lot of hairdressers, a lot of young British people, it's because we're from an island, I believe. I was like, oh, I want to travel, you know, and there's this great agency in London. And I walked into this amazing job in the States where the woman whose column it was had left to go to New York. And there was suddenly a whole new world to me that I discovered. And I think the love that I'd had for hairdressing hadn't been honed until I got to America, where I saw, one, that you could earn an absolute shitload of money if you worked cleverly. And two, that there was nothing wrong with being commercial and working behind a chair, you know. And that was 10 years in. So I was 26. And I was like, and suddenly the first 6 months of working back in 1993, I'd earned $60,000 in 6 months plus tips. I mean, I was like, wow. And that's the sort of the beginning of the story. So it's sort of not that it was a sad story. I mean, it's pretty much a normal gay kid growing up in the 80s who feels a bit lost and confused. And by the time I got to America, suddenly I was becoming a man. I was, in my mid-20s. The thing is, you start sorting things out in your head a little bit. You're able to afford to go and, see some therapy and sort of, navigate life better. But the community of hairdressing, wherever I'd been, had always looked after me. And for me, in my adult life, as life has got much easier for me, I've always wanted to make sure that the young people that came into the industry, that I would look after them. That was my promise to myself.
Yeah. And then, so in America, when you got there, so let's talk about this for a second. So let me just take you back before you went to America.
Yeah.
When you say, so you just wanted to travel, so did you go to America with no particular intention? Was it just, I just want to travel the world? Or did you go to America with the intention of, I want to be more successful, I want to, make a name for myself, or was it just?
There was no success in that. There was the Jack Howard that you see now, or that people may know from Instagram or from seeing me at events and stuff. He wasn't formed at that point. Okay. There was an agency in London that placed hairdressers and beauticians. She's still there all around the world. And I'd got some job offers with some sponsorship. And it was decades ago now, of course, so it was much easier. People could do those things. And the intention was just to make some money and do some more traveling.
Okay. And then, so how long in America before you decided to come back to the UK? And tell us about that. And when you were coming back, did you come back with an intention? I'd love to know when you got to the stage where you went, right, I want to make a go of this now. I want to make a name for myself in the industry. Was there a point that you thought that, or was it like a kind of snowball sort of effect that the more that you started to see a bit of success, then the more you wanted, kind of thing?
So success is relative, isn't it? I mean, success is very personal to each individual. And I think it's hard to sometimes to to put success in a box. But
Yeah.
what I first realized was that, you know, the American way of working, which I struggled with initially because it's so alien to the English way, and it was go go go. But you know, I'm kind of goal driven in many ways, I think. And once I'd realized that I could achieve and win at these things, so I could run a busy column of 18 to 24 clients a day. That was, to me, amazing, and it became effortless, and I loved it, and I honed that skill, and it was like, that's in my pocket. And then I also motivated by money. I saw what money could do for me, you know, provide for my home, my life, my family. And then suddenly I had money and I could do more things with it. And that was because of the work that I did. So it was important to me to produce great work, to work smartly and efficiently. And I had a boss at the time, excuse me. And one of them was super money. It was the money man. There's always those the money man and the creative, and lots of businesses have those.
Yeah.
The money man was like, just keep what you're doing, Jack. The creative was like, you need to push it to the next level. And I was resistant to being pushed. But he was like, you need to do this thing. It's called ballet something. And you just go like this, you know? And I was like, I don't need to do that. That's just bleach. And I always tell this story in my classes. And I went on a course and did nothing with it. And then I sort of was working with this Frenchman who was painting beautifully. And it sort of resonated with me and spoke to me on a, you know, this lovely, lovely way that it did. And then I started incorporating balayage into my day. And that's when L'Oreal asked me to start teaching it for them in North America. And I was the second person that was doing it for them at their academy. And this is where the more joy in the work, because then suddenly there was a beautiful, really fantastic column of great women that were coming in to see me. There were suddenly opportunities to go out and talk about what I did. And it's how I then honed the message about being salon successful, about, you know, if you can work smarter, that you can do this. I mean, I'm a boy from Lincolnshire, you know, I'm from a farming village, and I've managed to navigate my way to here in the world. And it was just a brilliant time. I mean, you know, it was so cool. Busy, traveling, you know, in my 30s. I mean, it was just magnificent, really was. And I loved the message. So I was successful in a small arena in America, in Washington, DC, super successful colorist there, one of the top 100 people behind the scenes of all the politicians, which was great articles, you know, clients coming in, people wanting to come on courses. I mean, that was lovely. And then it was like I wanted more. What was next? And I had this yearning to, after I think sort of 17 years of being in the States, I got married, still married to the same man, you know, I mean, he's great. And I sort of said, when I'd met him, I was thinking of coming back to England. There's always a pull to come home, or what I thought was a pull to come home.
Okay.
And then the idea was, well, nobody's doing balayage in the UK. This is something that you could succeed at there. And that's really, when I came back to England, that's when I hit the floor with a massive bump and was like, oh my God, what have I done?
Because it would be like, this is what fascinates me about it as well, is, you know, when somebody has made a name for themselves, like you say, in their area, in their arena, it's almost like, you know, that what they say, the big fish in a small pond or something like that. And all of a sudden they're coming back, it's like you're starting from scratch again. It's almost like that small fish in a big pond again, that you're like, crikey, how do I get to, you know, how do I build up? So you were starting from scratch. Let me ask you
I was very naive, because I thought, with my, you know, being this person at L'Oreal Professional, that all of that, you know, the bank told me that it would translate easily, Citibank would translate easily, that the product company thought it would translate easily over. I thought that people would want me because of my success in the USA, and that wasn't true.
No. And tell me, so let me ask around that a couple of things. How did that transition feel? I mean, how much does mindset play a part in this? Was there, like, when you say you were hit with a bang when you first came back, that reality, but was it like, did it knock you off track, or did it just make you more, right, I'm focused, I know exactly what I have to do? Or did you get a bit lost for a while when you first came back? Tell us a little bit about that transition.
So, one, I had money in the bank account. I had a lot of money in my bank account ready, and I also had a husband who was still working. So, of course, money helps you navigate those changes a little bit more, because I didn't have to change my lifestyle too much. For the first 6 months, I did some job interviews, and first of all, I was like, "Yeah, I got a job interview, right?" And then it was like, "Oh my God, what was that?" And I can remember I've just spoken to him actually, Marcus Allen. He was at Urban Retreat, and I remember I had 3 interviews there, and it went on and on. And I said how much I wanted to be paid, and he's like, "You've got to be kidding! There's no way you're going to get that." And I mean, I laugh about it now, and I'm like, I mean, I just can't work for that kind of what they were offering. And I'm like, whoops, oh my God. And then there were a couple of others, and there were lots of people where I took my resume, and I'd made it, I put it on beautiful paper that was, had a linen count to it. I mean, I was caught up in the details of some things and not the others.
Yeah.
And I can remember all these receptionists just looking and saying, "Who is this guy that's come in here and said, 'Hi, my name's Jack Howard. I'd love to have a look around your salon. I'm interested in working here.'" And it's quite ballsy to do that. But I mean, what are you going to do? But you can see them scrunch it up and throw it in the bin. And that became a bit disheartening.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic summer in 2010 in England. I don't know whether anyone's old enough to remember it, but so I rented this apartment, and I had a personal trainer every day, and it was great. But by November time, I'd come back in the May. By November time, I'm like, I need to start working. And it's like the job offers were not there. England was still in a recession.
Yeah.
But I still felt pretty optimistic about it all. And when I actually physically started working, that's when all my devils started rattling around in my head.
Okay, tell us more about that.
I mean, people talk about mindset now, don't they? And everyone talks about, well, not everyone, but it seems that people are very more open to talking about feelings and emotions. And sometimes I feel that these words are, and this is my own personal, it's nothing of anyone else's. I sometimes feel they're bantered around a little bit too much about, stuff. But I've always been a super anxious person. My anxiety levels can rise rapidly. Not that you would see that necessarily on camera, but my head, the conversations that go on in my head are a little bit loopy sometimes.
Yeah.
And if I work out and if I eat properly and I control things, I can manage that better. But if all that starts tumbling apart around me, I can just spiral and go to some pretty dark places, I feel anyway.
Yeah.
And so I started working, and as I look back on my UK journey, the second time, I can honestly at this point, be really thankful for every single experience, because for the hairdresser that said to me, he said, "Oh, I'm a Knightsbridge hairdresser. We don't do that. I do foils." And I'm like, I look back on that and I giggle, because I've done so well from painting hair. And so many salons have done so well from education from me and all of that stuff. But I can remember that moment, and I remember the Italian company I worked for, where we were self-employed, yet we had to work every hour God gave until 10 at night, and we had to wear the same color code. And so we were employed. It was a tax avoidance scheme, obviously, when you look back at it. But that opened the door to L'Oreal Professional for me. And, and that meant that L'Oreal Professional hadn't wanted to know me. They told me that they didn't do balayage in the UK. And when I ran that course for them, it's super sold out. And then there was another Italian company who said that I was a dinosaur. And, I'm 55 now. And so I was, maybe 50 then? And all those things, and, the wanting to kind of be successful. And I think that what I wanted was the success of what I'd had in America back again in the UK. And of course, that doesn't happen. You don't repeat the same success. You earn a new success.
Yeah.
And at one point, I'd just let myself go, and I was drinking too much. I was eating rubbish. I got, I got up to 273 pounds from this super fit young guy to that, and hated myself, and still had to work. And, it was hard. And I needed a reset in that. And that's when I took myself to Thailand, and did a detox, and did a digital detox, obviously alcohol detox, and a food detox and everything, and got myself physically better, and kept working on that. And I think from that point, then things started getting even better for me.
Yeah. And how long did you go to Thailand for?
I did 4 weeks.
Wow.
I did 4 weeks there the first time. And it's very funny. I was in a friend of mine who works in Ireland. I was doing a course there, and I was sat on a rooftop in Ireland, drinking a beer, eating a pizza at this just huge, uncomfortable in my own skin. And and I can say to her, I've got to do something, as I'm shoving a slice of pizza in my face. And it's just, we laugh about it now. And she sort of said, look, there's this place I've seen on Netflix. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. And I went, and I did 2 weeks of no food at all, and lots of exercise, and got my mind back in the game. And I have to be really careful about looking after myself.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think we all do, really. And I think sometimes we underestimate our lifestyles, how much it affects us, whether it's not even just as simple as not getting enough sleep. If we have a day that we don't get enough sleep, it affects our state. And when our state is affected, we read things differently, we feel things differently, we see things differently, because we're seeing it from a different state. So I think I did a thing recently where I just unplugged for a day, and I felt so much better. So 4 weeks, that's goals, Jack. That's my
well, I did that every year until COVID. I did that every year until COVID, and then of course we couldn't travel anywhere. And it was really, really good for me. And going on my own was fantastic. I mean, I took my books, and I was able to clear my head of all the chat. But that can take me a few days. That can take me a good few days to get rid of that. And sort of since then, I've been much more focused on trying to be kinder to myself. And that means not always pushing myself, always trying to prove something to myself. And again, I'm really guilty of that, and turning the phone off occasionally. But we live in a digital age, and it's my own business, and I feel like success is dependent upon making money and people wanting to engage and all those things. So I'm continually aware that I'm always seem to be on. Yep,
and it's that trying somewhere to find that little bit of balance somewhere of balancing it out. So let's talk a little bit about then of course the influencer, the followers, how that started to build. Was that something intentional? Was that a strategy, like to grow on social media, or did that just happen organically as a result of people started to get to know you and started to follow you, showing your work, etc., or was it done with intention and strategy?
When I read this question yesterday, I mean, it took me on this amazing journey of sort of retrospect, of looking at it, because I don't think anyone sits there. I mean, as you said at the beginning, I mean, yesterday I hit 200,000 followers, and I'm amazed that 2 people want to follow me some days.
Woohoo!
But how it all really came about was, obviously, I opened my account, I think, in 2013. And at that point, I had a extension range with a hair extension company, a balayage by Jack Howard. And I was following lots of, extensionists, and they were following me. And it was sort of, I think that when I got offered my Blonde Me global role, I was at that 25,000 mark, which is a lot of people still, right?
Yeah.
But if we go back further than that, I was with L'Oreal Professional, and there was this rise of the influencer across the hairdressing market. So it's around about 2017. And I had less followers than I probably had, I don't know, say 15, maybe max, maybe less, probably less. And I was in this room in Paris. Sounds very glamorous, right? In this room in Paris, and there was myself, who is a a strong, I believe, traditional educator, that I could stand on the stage, I can follow a product company's guidelines, I can put the message across, I can do that. I've done that for many, many years. And there was another educator like that with me, who was my friend in New York. Her name's Min Kim. And so she and I were there, and we were like, oh my God, we're pitiful as far as social media goes. And then there was Anko Tran, who's now at 400 and something thousand followers. There's Chelsea Haircutter, who's at 225,000 followers. There was another guy out in LA that had all these followers. And what I realized was they were bringing together the influencers because their voice was massive, but they also needed the traditional educator, because these guys were just, not that they were reckless on stage, but they weren't polished. They knew how to talk to camera, they knew how to post the picture, but they didn't necessarily know how to present strongly. And their idea was that they wanted to merge these two together. And what I realized in that moment was that if I didn't get my act together digitally, I was going to have problems being an educator going forward into the future. That was an aha moment for me.
Right.
Yeah, a real aha moment. And I then started playing. And, you know, first of all, I tried to mimic what these guys were doing. And then there's no authenticity in that. My blow dries are crap. Even with the great, they're just not my strength, right? I mean, one, I never do them. And my haircuts aren't strong either anymore because I don't do them, but my paint was. And then I had an aha moment where it was like, nobody's showing the process, the bit that looks really beautiful. And I started showing the paints and zooming in on pieces of the hair that was finished. And we started seeing the growth in that.
Right.
But in a busy salon, I couldn't get the pictures, you know, in Knightsbridge. There's no space in London, first of all, to have an area to take a picture. And it wasn't built into the day, and hairdressers were finishing the work for me. So I was doing back-to-back clients, and then the clients were coming out and they didn't have the makeup on, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, you know. Whereas those guys were building it all into their days, or they had a million assistants doing it for it. And you know what it's like in England, there just aren't a million assistants. And that's when my friend, who'd worked at L'Oreal and then worked at Schwarzkopf, and who was then, where was she then? She'd come back to London, said, let's do content days. Let's just do content and just film for that. And I had enough models that I knew and young women that wanted to have their hair done with me that I could just do film three women from start to finish. And do with these hair hack Mondays where we had a tutorial on IGTV. Obviously the algorithms changed since then. And it really started to take off. And I think that at one point there, I'd changed roles, had gone for a global role with Schwarzkopf. And so I'd left LP, sort of said goodbye to them, and which was a risk. And just as I hit the 50, COVID hits. And everything stops. The world stops, including me. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then, so then what? I mean, we know that COVID hit, and that was good for some people. I mean that in the best possible sense. But what I mean is, more people were online, more people were seeing. So did you find that this growth then started happening really fast because more people were online, or was it because you had more time to put into the content?
So I think, I can't speak for anyone else, but it was devastating for me to stop. I was going to have this amazing year of travel and great countries, and my calendar I just thought was magnificent. I mean, I was literally living the dream. And it stopped, and I'm like, oh my God, I've got no content, I've got nothing. I am nothing in this. Do you know what I mean? As no revenue comes in, I wasn't self-employed. I was a director, so of course I was one of the 3.5 million that got zilch. Couldn't do anybody. I wasn't doing any home hairdressing. I certainly don't believe in that at that time. Not that I'm going to pass judgment on anyone that did. And my friend Carrie, said to me, you need to go live. You need to start doing some lives. And I rummaged around the house and I had like 26 something doll heads in the house. And I'm like, okay. And my first live, and this might sound strange to everyone, but then I'd never gone live on my own. If I'd done a live, there was a crew of people around me. And I went live from my kitchen. It's still on my IGTV. And it's just terrible now, if I think about it. It was, the lighting was off. I mean, all of it was off. But I learned how to do it all myself. And I learned the lighting. And I went live twice a week for a long, long time. And there was this community that discovered me and that we built. And I say we because everyone who follows me, we built this community where it was a super safe environment to talk about our love. And there was no real product plugs in there. Obviously I talked about the product I was using, but people were answering questions for me. And, it was in such an awful time. It was such a brilliant super moment for me. And my Instagram just went mad. I mean, the numbers were huge.
And that brings me nicely into, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to get more seen? They want to get out there. They've got something that they want to share. They might want to go live, for example, but they are so scared of putting themselves out there. It's a real fear. It's a real thing. I'm sure, when you first did it, you were nervous doing it. It's something that you haven't done before. What advice would you give to somebody that wants to do that? They want to break through the fear and start going live.
I think that if you really want to do it, then you have to do it. And there are so many things in your mind that stop you from doing things in life. I mean, all my little triggers go off. So I'm too fat on camera. I sound like a gay. I've got 3 chins going on today. All the bags under my eyes, all the wrinkles. I hate the sound of my voice. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I was really fortunate that my friend in New York was going through the same kind of thing as me too. Like, what the hell am I going to do? And we used to WhatsApp each other on video and show each other the setup of our rooms so that we could critique it fairly and sort of say, move that, move this. I mean, you saw me when I came on today, I just moved things around a little bit so it looked good, but I didn't know that then. So my friend critiqued me and I critiqued her, and we supported each other in being a little bit more confident. But you got to do it, right? You sound like you sound, and nobody likes the sound of their own voice. And, you find an angle that works for you on camera, maybe a little bit, maybe lift it up a little bit or move it around or something, but, don't be doing it like that or like that or like that, sort of make sure that you kind of look okay for you. And then you have to do it. You have to take the plunge. It's the first time you ever go on stage. I nearly wet myself. I couldn't speak. Dry mouth. All this.
Oh, I can relate.
Yeah, but you've got to do it. But there's also some brilliant people on here. First of all, your group, the Jedis, support each other. You've got Simon Shaw Education. He talks about presentation skills. You've got, Viv talking about online stuff. There are lots of people out there with free access to it if you want to do some research. But the best thing you can possibly do is, if you really want it, is just do it. And then play it back to yourself and see what you don't like and correct that for the next time. Okay.
And a big fear that people have is the whole, they don't want to be judged, right? So it's a fear of being judged, a fear of having a hater, attracting a hater, or negative comments or anything like that. Have you had any experience with that at all? And do you have any advice around that side of it, that specific side?
Yeah, I do. I think, on some different levels too, really. So quite often when I did my lives, we got, God, he's so gay, he's this, he's that, he's the other, and you just ignore it, you carry on. I've seen a friend get bashed online, and he was devastated by it, but he still got back online because, the majority of people want to see you. I've had, comments about your work is shit, all that stuff. And sometimes I could put it on a story and get the whole of all my followers to respond to that person, but I actually don't see the point in that. I usually just block them. it does prey on you. Of course it does. It does, because it's like when you do 6 great colors every day, and then on one day you do one and she doesn't like it. And what do you think about? You don't think about the 6 every day that you've done that are great. All you can focus on is the failing, the one that went wrong. And I think it's the same when people start commenting. I got into a very public spat on Instagram with somebody who's very well known, and I actually deeply regret it, because I just shouldn't have gone there with it. I should have left it all alone. And so, you know, I can't say that I've not been involved in something, but it's not something that I don't advise to get involved in it. Just, if you don't like them, just put them on mute or block them.
Yeah, move on. It's
move on. Yeah.
I do think there's definitely, for me, it's like, you know, the law of polarity. There is, you know, as I teach my Jedis, there is no one-sided life. It doesn't exist. And often we're trying to strive for that one-sided life, and it doesn't exist. And we think we're trying to move towards this perfect place. It's about that balance and understanding, you know, with all the accolades and with all that comes challenges as well. With that percent that, you know, you'll have your top fans that just absolutely love you, and the whole balance of that law of polarity, you'll have the other side of that, and you will have some people that don't like your work, don't like your voice, don't like you, don't like how you look. They're going to judge you anyway. And I think if you're going to put yourself out there, it's knowing that will probably come. The bigger that you get, it's going to come, because it's just it's the law of the universe. It's the balance. But it's being prepared emotionally as well to deal with that, like you say, and be aware of that, and know that the brain is pulling you towards that. Hold on a second. It's being mindful, isn't it? Going, right, hold on a second. Look at all these amazing comments that I'm bypassing right now just to read that negative one, and then not emotionally internalizing it. And of course, like you say, it's about stopping to respond, and whether that response is delete. So stopping to respond rather than reacting, and being reactory in that moment. So I mean, I think that's great advice. We do have to stop, because if not, like you say, you could, if we start to be responsive, you could go, crikey, why did I do that, and regret that. And it's just having that mindfulness to stop and be responsive. But I think it's a part of it. And I think if we put ourselves out there, it's going to come, but it's how we emotionally deal with it, for sure.
I mean, I think I've been really lucky in the sense that I haven't had a lot of hate on there, or trolling or anything like that. But I am very careful about what I put on Instagram, and I'm very careful about my tone of voice in that too. So my tone of voice, I want to reflect the whole of the Jack Howard brand. And so I want that to be compassionate and kind and, you know, helpful and caring and all those things. And so you have to be really careful about, there are things that you might be having a very visceral reaction to that are going on in the world. And do you want to show all your followers that, or do you want to sort of sit back on that and not do it? I am not a digital entertainer, so you're not going to see me on a reel doing something crazy, you know, with a wig on or anything like that. It's not my comfort zone. It's not something I would do in my everyday life, and it's certainly not something I'm going to do on Insta. But I'm an educator, and that's the only message that I want to do on there. Education and my community of people that want to be educated and want to educate each other. I think knowing who you are for your social is really important, because we don't need the rest of it. I mean, very rare, you occasionally get me in a pair of shorts at the pool, if I can get to a pool, and you might see a hotel I'm staying at, and you might see a little bit of the private life, and you see the dogs occasionally, and you see a bit of cooking. You don't get the politics, you don't get statements, big strong statements from me. I keep all that for my own personal life and my own personal stuff that goes on, maybe for my own private, you know, friends and things, but not for a social platform. I keep neutral on most things as much as possible.
I think that's a great point. It's an important point. I really do, is that you've been yourself. And it's like, sometimes if you see someone else that, like you say, is a different way and they might be really entertaining, and then you try and model that, but it's not you, and it's not who you are, and it doesn't come naturally, I think that would come across. If, you know, if you're not being completely natural and being yourself, it would come across. So I think that's what you do well. You know who you are, and, you know, you do your thing exceptionally well.
But it's a 39-year journey, right, of finding who I am. And Jack Howard at 16 or 13 in Newark to Jack Howard at 55, moved back in the States, is a very different person. And along the way, you know, he's grown and he's developed and he's found out who he is. And who he is now isn't who he was then. And for everybody, when you go digitally online, you have to find your voice, which means you are going to make some mistakes, but they don't have to be big, massive ones that the whole world comes crashing down. It could just simply be that didn't work. And it's okay that it didn't work. And now I know it didn't.
Exactly. And we have a few questions. Let's jump to a few questions. Some of you guys haven't given permission at the top of the podcast here. If you give StreamYard permission, I'd be able to see who you are and what your name is, but we'll ask the questions anyway. What is your proudest achievement? And it's interesting, as you said earlier, success is relative, isn't it? But for you personally, Jack, what is your proudest achievement?
I'm going to have to say, and it's really, I mean, I don't want anyone to think, oh my God, but I'm going to have to say that it's my marriage. You know, my husband and I have been together 18 years now, and he smoothed all the edges on me. And so personally, that's my proudest moment of marrying him and being with him for 18 years. Career-wise, there are loads. And like I say, that each moment has had its moment. I think the Marie Claire award was super proud of that, because it was cemented. The commercial hair colorists that worked behind the chair were celebrated by fashion magazines. And, you know, the first year Nicola Clark won it in the UK, the second year I won it, and the third year Josh Wood won it. And for me to be amongst those two sorts of icons of color was just like, wow. Yeah.
Okay.
So two of them.
Okay. And also, if you hadn't done hairdressing, what other profession would you have done?
Okay, do we want the funny answer, or do we want the serious answer?
Oh, we want funny. We definitely want funny.
I don't know. I think maybe I might have been a stripper or a go-go dancer, but no, I had actually wanted to do textiles. There was a Manchester University were doing them, but of course, I mean, I left home, and so I couldn't go on to university. I like textures and fabrics, and so it's quite interesting that I went into hair and hair color, right? I mean, they flow along nicely. I don't know. I've sort of played in my mind sometimes. I wouldn't have minded being, a therapist, maybe, possibly, or a gardener. I don't know. I mean, there's loads of things I like to do.
Yeah, okay. And Seamus is asking, he's saying that it's really interesting that you took yourself away for 4 weeks for detox and reset. I've done that as well, not for 4 weeks, but, I've taken myself away for a week by myself, etc. It is an experience. What value would you place on that for your career in life journey? Seamus is asking.
Well, Seamus, thank you. I think that it reset me and changed the dark place I was in when I first went on that one. It brought me back to life. It made things a lot clearer in my head. I'd got so overweight that I was on blood pressure medication, and I didn't go back on that. I got myself back fit and healthy. It was a wonderful reset. And actually, for going all the way to Thailand, it was actually cheaper than doing some of the week-long retreats in the UK. Basically, you were on a beach and you had 300 calories a day. But it definitely, the best thing I'd done in a long time.
Yeah, there's something about unplugging that's just, and like you say, it may take a day or two to get into it, but there's just something. I remember the first time I did it, and it was just for a week, and I went away myself, and like you say, books. But when I came back, this is the thing that sticks in my mind, and I'll always, and that's why I go back for more, was I remember my shoulders feeling Ah, do you know that feeling where it's like
instead of that,
it was like just pure dropped. And I remember just having that moment when I came back of just when you're just happy in the now and you just feel that blissful feeling inside, not because something's happened, just because you feel that way. And, you know, it's that feeling that is the feeling that I've gone back and done it again for. It's just that escape. It's definitely a reset for sure.
Yeah.
And we also have one last question here, Jack, if that's okay. Was hitting rock bottom integral to your ongoing success following your return from the States, or was that pretty unfortunate? So that, you know, talking about when you first came back, you said you kind of hit a wall when you first came back. So they're asking, was that integral, or do you think looking back, was that a big learning curve for you? Or
I think it was integral. I think that, you know, the first part of it it wasn't hitting rock bottom. I think the piece of rock bottom was sort of in the middle of the journey, just as I won the Marie Claire Award. So about 2018, 16, 17. I think going off to Koh Samui was coming out of rock bottom, and there was a period of time where it was just, you know, I got to work, I was present, but it was just awful. And I think that from that, I sort of blossomed and rose again, and have just continued to go on to do new and exciting things. It's not something I would wish on anyone, but I think it was something that I had to go through to learn some new lessons, and also to reaffirm some of the lessons I knew about myself anyway that I'd chosen to ignore.
Yeah. Facebook user, whoever it is, you can type in and say, some people haven't given permission, but they're saying, Jack, you are a superstar.
Thank you very much.
And yes, and someone else here saying that they watched you throughout lockdown. They're saying, but you did it. They've been watching you and they've loved it. So Jack, tell us about, so your new project, tell us about it. Tell us about how people can reach out to you, and tell us about Jack and Friends. You know, tell us all about that. What is that?
So Jack Howard and Friends came out of obviously lockdown in many ways. It was like the whole lockdown thing, and doing all those lives and just realizing that there was this real need for and real desire and want for commercial education that the product companies still weren't delivering. And I'd looked at, there were loads of people doing Zooms for, you know, £2 and £20, and people were doing Patreon accounts, and they were doing this and they were doing that. And I was like, what am I going to do? Because my business plan anyway was that I educated, that I went out into salons and educated. I did it for brands. What was the next step in that? Hey, Faye, how are you? But what I thought was that I didn't want it to be the Jack Howard Roadshow. There was an opportunity here to build something that became more community, which is what I'd been drawn to and shown in lockdown. And that I could bring on like-minded artists too, who sort of I admired, who I liked, whose work was really commercial, and that we could do all of that. And so I built a platform from scratch, not personally, obviously, because, you know, I can only type with two fingers. But I got someone to build it, and we got a business plan together, and Jack Howard and Friends was born. And so it's free at point of entry. Anyone can join, and they can purchase videos as they go along, or it's a membership where you get 2 lives with me a month. You get basically the color degree without the product. So the product house is always selling you product. This is purely a color degree over 12 months. I had Simon Shaw on there doing some coaching for people. So I'm bringing on people into the membership feed that are going to offer like business tips, and I'll be there doing coloring tips and all that stuff, and get some styling on there as well. And then brands can put their brand videos on if they want to, and people can build their own libraries in there and save all their favorite videos. So you don't have to pay the monthly subscription, but what you can do is you can just pay as you go. Like yesterday, I did a 3-hour live on a big heavy paint. Anyone could buy purchase tickets for that, and they can watch it as many times as they want. I see a lot of people saying, well, you buy it, but you can only watch it for 7 days. You can have this video. You bought it, it's yours. Watch it.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
excellent. How do people like? What's the website? How do people find it?
So the website is jackhowardandfriends.com. The link is in my bio on my Instagram, of course. Yeah, hello. And that's where it starts. And come September, we're going to have more artists on there doing more stuff. And I just think that Jack Howard and Friends isn't here to replace in-person education. It's to complement it. Sometimes we don't want to get on a train and we don't want to pay a hotel, and we've got other things to do, and we want to just watch the video and it still feel really familiar, right? And there are other times when we think, yeah, actually, I'd like to go to this one and I want to go and make an event of it. I think that it's important that both sit together nicely, and that's what Jack Howard and Friends is for.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you've got a whole team, the logistics of putting the whole team onto a course, or if they're not able to get you up personally, it's, being able to do it digitally like that, it opens it up to all your team doing the same training and stuff like that as well.
So you can book on that site, you can actually book me to do a private Zoom class with you. So we can do private, so we can build the classes for whatever you want in the salon. So we can do paint alongs, we can do all sorts of things too. So it's not just what's on there. You can do your one-on-one learning on there with me if you wanted to, or your two-on-one. So there are lots of different options on there. I wanted to make it cover as many things as we possibly could within a beautiful, easy to navigate platform.
It sounds awesome. We've got Maggie Thompson here from Magnificence Hair and Beauty, who would love to sign her assistants up to your colour degree. And she was asking, will you be offering courses in person as well?
So we are offering courses in person. Obviously, here in the USA, I'm not going to be in the UK as often. That's the problem. I'm adding a course in person in October. It's not been announced yet, but you're the first to hear about it. I will be doing some more dates next year. We're looking at March and September already for the UK, which is great. And the whole color degree thing, it's called Geek Squad, and it's on Jack Howard and Friends. It's in the monthly membership subscription. Episode 3 is already up, but episode 1, 2, and 3 are up, and you can watch them all back at your own pace. And you can build your own library, so they can all be in there. So you can sign your assistants up for that. It's really good, and you can ask questions in the chat box, and it goes on live once a month, but then it goes straight up and it's stored on there.
Yeah. Oh, Jack, thank you so much for giving so much of your time today. It's been absolutely brilliant. I could just keep speaking and asking so many questions, but I'm aware of the time, and we'll let you go now. Thank you so much for asking everybody's questions. What's next for Jack Howard? That's my last question. What's next? What's the goal now?
The goal now, I suppose, really, here I am back in the USA, and the goal is to build a column in DC and to build the Jack Howard and Friends website, and to continue doing what I've been doing, and to find new adventures, new exciting things, because I don't want to stop learning. I don't want to stop. I don't see myself at my end of my career. I see myself very much at a new chapter in it, and as much as I can be paralyzed by that, and I think it's important to talk about that to your audience, I'm also incredibly hopeful, and it's just overcoming the paralysis of certain days and filling the room with hope. And coming on things like this is absolutely amazing for me, because it reignites my fire. So I wanted to thank you so much for having me on, and thank everyone that's been asking the questions today. It's such a pleasure to talk with you. And of course, I just talk so much, don't I? I'm so sorry.
Oh no, I've loved it. I could just keep going and going, and then it's like in the background, you have to get up.
Yeah.
Right, listen, yeah. I absolutely loved it, and this will go out. Thank you for live today, and it does go out to a much larger community. So I'm sure you'll get a lot of people getting in touch, because Jack Howard and Friends sounds awesome. Congratulations on everything, your awards, your career, and I love watching it, and I can't wait to see what is coming next.
Well, congrats on your awards at BHBA and everything as well. Unfortunately, I'm up for the same award again. I won't be there though, because I'm in Italy working. So not that that's a hard life, I can't say that, but good luck. Good luck.
Well, good luck to you as well, Jack. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.